Okay, hello everyone. My name is Gavin Starks. I'm the founder of Icebreaker One. I want to just introduce you to some of the work that we're embarking on and introduce you to some of our team who will go into a bit more detail of each of the programs. Icebreaker One is here to help bridge the data gaps between climate change and finance. And so we're looking at how do we better apply our environmental intelligence through data into the financial community and beyond. We've got a number of different programs, but really what we're here to do is to try and help instrument net zero. And that involves not just getting access to the data, but it involves connecting our policy with risk management and with investment, so that at the point of investment, an investor could mandate the data flows to demonstrate net zero at the point of design, at the point of construction, operation, and decommissioning of any project. We spend trillions of dollars per annum on our infrastructure, and all of that needs to be demonstrably net zero in order that everybody can hit their targets of net zero. In the UK, obviously, our target here is 2050 as a legally binding target. Getting there is going to be difficult, and we want to help it be a provable journey. In order to do that, we're bringing together different organizations. We're working across the public and the private sector. So here we're helping businesses and markets evolve to enable collaboration, to accelerate the use of data sharing. In order to do that, rather than just say, well, if we bring the data to market, magic will happen, we're saying that we've really got to be focused on the user needs. So there's a strand here on product innovation. We're really helping companies work out what products they can take to market and what data then supports those products. In the context of Icebreaker's role, we're here to help bring people together across sectors. So we're also looking at the market efficiencies and the data infrastructure governance across markets that will enable data sharing between companies that may not want to share information or deal with data rights, data protection, security, and related issues. That then takes us into the policy realm, and so we're creating policy interventions and recommendations along the way. We've got three major projects. One is called SERI, which is the Standard for Environmental Risk and Insurance. There we're partnered with Aon, Arup, Bird & Bird on the insurance, on the legal side, Brit Insurance, Lloyd's Register Foundation, University of Cambridge, and Willis Towers Watson. And the target there is to try and create a climate-ready financial product. Second project is Project Cygnus, which is how can we finance net zero recovery, net zero economic recovery from the COVID crisis that we're currently in. And the third project is Open Energy, where we're taking the principles that have already been applied in open banking, which is a national standard in the UK, to the energy sector, and can we enable energy data sharing across the entire market. So I'm going to pass over now to Nick, who can tell us a bit more about Project Cygnus. Nick.
Thank you, Gavin. I'm Nick Tyrone. I'm the Research Director of Project Cygnus, which, as Gavin explained, is about trying to find out how we can come out of the COVID recovery period economically in a way that is net zero, that meets net zero targets. So I've looked at the research. I'm sort of doing it in three strands. The first one is very much around data, given it very falls within the very much the Icebreaker One sort of world, which is what data do we have around around this subject, and what data do we not have? So looking at the data that we have, and obviously using that data as best as possible to go through the other two streams, which I'll explain in a moment, but then also identifying where we don't seem to have the data, which I think is actually equally as important to find out. The second stream is to try and paint a picture of what a COVID recovery economically would look like, and then obviously how we can make that as green and sustainable as possible. So basically just an overview of that world. And then out of that, we hope to get the third one, which will be our policy recommendations. So that's the how bit, that's the real policy bit, which is how do we achieve net zero from a green COVID recovery. And so that's what I'm doing on Project Cygnus. Project Cygnus is also has a partnership with the University College Dublin and an organization called GovCo. And they're going to be doing some more of the data bits as well. There's a whole huge amount of data that we are creating around this. As I say, my bit is to kind of sort of take that data and come out at the end with some policy recommendations around how we actually make we take advantage of the situation, which is COVID has put us into a crisis. We're going to need some economic plan to get out of it. It's now time to make it as sustainable, as green as possible. And so that's what Project Cygnus is all about.
Thank you, Nick. We'll come back to some questions at the end there too. So moving forward here onto open energy, if I pass over to Miles.
Hi, thank you, Gavin. So Open Energy is a competition. It's sponsored by Innovate UK. Actually, it's the Modernising Energy Data Access competition, and Icebreaker already won the first phase. We're into the second phase now, where we are head-to-head with Siemens. And what we're doing is somewhat different to Siemens. They are doing a kind of central gateway. We are doing a distributed architecture based on open banking, learning from open banking, looking how we can repurpose that very same infrastructure and same approach to make it really work well for the energy market. It's all about creating an ecosystem. Now, we've already seen this and learning from open banking how hundreds of companies have come in to create some really, really interesting, innovative solutions which address real customer needs, address the issues around financial inclusion and so on. Now, we think we can take exactly the same approach and use that to hasten the drive towards decarbonising the energy system in the UK. And what's going on at the moment is that actually we're moving from a very centralised system to a very decentralised system. So it's perfect timing, if you like. What we can do is start to unlock the huge amount of data that exists across the energy network, and start to use that in a way that allows us to solve some of the very compelling problems that we're faced with at the moment. And we'll do that by basically creating a standard and a governance platform that allows all this to flourish. It's really about encouraging organizations and startups, entrepreneurs to come to the party and to start thinking about how we can actually address a much more efficient energy system, but also how we can turn that into something which has economic benefit, societal benefit, and of course meets this end goal of decarbonising. So this is about an open standard then that allows this kind of marketplace to flourish. We are very much into trying to make sure this becomes as interoperable and cohesive as possible, and that means interoperable between different sectors as well. There's no reason why you couldn't have solutions which draw on data coming from different sectors, banking being an obvious one, and we can start to see use cases around that. But actually trying to leverage this massive investment that's already been made in this fantastic infrastructure. What the open banking infrastructure allows you to do is to create a trusted environment where you can be really, really confident about who the players are. So if I'm going to share data with some other service, how do I know who that person is, who that organization is? How can I be confident that I'm sharing the right data, and that's going to be managed securely and effectively? And the open banking infrastructure has been designed to do exactly that. And now we will repurpose that for the energy sector, and really this is what all that is about. And to do that, we have two work streams. One which is very much around understanding user needs, policy, operations, and the technical aspects, where we're bringing together a large number of stakeholders to help provide guidance, make sure that we're on track, take feedback from the industry, and ensure that what we actually create meets specifically the needs of the energy industry. And the second work stream is creating a prototype itself. And for that, we are looking at creating the governance platform. We're looking at search and discovery, so you can find the data that you need. We are intending to create a mocked up service, so we can basically populate the data within a mock-up service provider, and we're working on getting a reference customer for it. So you can see the whole thing end to end. So it's a very exciting project, could have major impact on efficiency and decarbonisation across the UK. And I would urge you to sign up for the Icebreaker Energy Cluster to stay in touch with everything that we're doing there. Back to you, Gavin.
Thanks, Miles. Really exciting project. We'll come back to some more questions at the end on that as well. But let's move forward here with our final bit of the jigsaw. Jana.
So SERI is the standard for environmental risk and insurance, and the rationale behind focusing on the insurance industry, I think, as Gavin puts it, is that insurance is one of the hardest pieces of the financial services infrastructure puzzle to solve when it comes to delivering the financial capabilities we need to enable net zero. So the purpose of SERI is twofold. Firstly, it's to work with the insurance industry and wider stakeholders to create climate-ready insurance products, and I'll get onto the definition of climate-ready in a minute. And then secondly, it's also to identify and deliver the shared data infrastructure that will enable them. And it's really important when we talk about shared data infrastructure to emphasize that we are not looking at defining new data standards here. There are many very useful data standards in existence, and it's quite a crowded space. What we want to do is to actually, in the same way as Miles described open energy and taking principles from open banking, we want to develop the infrastructure for actually exposing and sharing data that adheres to existing or new standards in the future. So when we talk about climate ready insurance products, what do we mean by climate ready? So climate ready is defined as firstly something that delivers net zero or enables a move towards net zero, and secondly addresses the consequences of climate change through greater resilience and adaptation. And within SERI, we are very much more focused on the first prong of that definition, which is creating insurance products that will enable delivery of net zero objectives. And the second, which is addressing the consequences of climate change, is more to do with physical risk and is more nice to have. So taking all this and putting it together, and a climate-ready insurance product is one which incentivizes climate-ready behaviors on the part of the buyers of insurance, or also could enable them to bring to market products or technologies that are themselves climate-ready. So examples of these in terms of incentivizing climate-ready behaviors could include things like for example, flood insurance type products that incentivize the buyers of insurance to actually flood-proof their homes in the future, and also use sustainable technologies in doing so, or else enabling net zero enabling technologies such as wind turbines, electric vehicles, and other renewable energy sources. So the program started on the 1st of April and it runs until the 31st, or this initial phase runs until the 31st of March 2021. And it's split across 3 work streams, which are all quite fairly interdependent. So the Product Innovation Working Group is exploring insurance product innovation across a number of areas, including renewable energy, green transport, net zero enabling technologies, and the incorporation of climate readiness into credit risk assessments. The Data and Standards Working Group is looking at the shared data infrastructure that will support these products that are created, as well as the wider ecosystem of climate and risk-related data requirements. And the Policy Working Group, which I lead, supports both product innovation and data and standards in collaborating with partners and external stakeholders to recommend approaches for policy implementation. So in terms of, we're again, very open to collaboration with a very broad range of stakeholders. And whilst product innovation is very much focused on insurance, certainly from a policy perspective, we see many opportunities to create reinforce messages across other stakeholders, across financial services and green finance sectors. So we're always welcoming new people to join. Back to you, Gavin.
Thanks, Jana. So we've got a couple of minutes just to go through some questions. I want to come back to Nick to begin with, and say that we've got this huge potential. We've got University College Dublin creating macroeconomic analysis of how we might build back into more of a green economy. We've got the University of Edinburgh gathering data from hundreds of thousands of businesses on a weekly basis from their individual bank statements, for example. So we're getting more access to more data than we've had in the past. What do you think the potential here could be, and who do you most want to engage with?
Okay, well, yes, I think the potential is huge. I think this is one of the big questions of our time, which is how do we, I think when we look back at 2008, and that was a big financial crisis, and how can we make the system better? I think lots of people obviously felt disappointed by where that went. I think we have to get into a place where, how do we use this completely effectively to get to the net zero targets that we want? We don't allow any of that to slide. In fact, we use it as an impetus to improve those things. In terms of reaching people, I want to obviously influence everywhere we can. I want to influence the government as much as we can, this government, the next government. I want to have something that's, robust enough in terms of its policy recommendations to be, not immediate, but not entirely time limited, if that makes sense. So something that you can pick up, you'd ideally pick up now, but you could also pick it up in a couple of years if that was where we were. And particularly given we don't know how long the COVID crisis is going to last from here. So those are all the things that I'm sort of bearing in mind. So I'd like to reach a Westminster audience, but also a wider audience in the country, an academic audience, a business audience. I think what I want to do with the output is to make it as accessible as possible to all those groups.
Great, thank you. And Miles, we're just in the process now of spinning up advisory groups to help us navigate through what's going to be a very short sprint on open energy. What's your number one ask for participants at the moment?
So really lean in and really help shape this whole program. We have already started understanding what sector user needs look like, and we did a lot of work in phase one. Now translating that into actually how do we make this work. So the big policy questions. So for example, to do this, we need to address issues like what does it take for a service provider to play in this kind of ecosystem? That's an unknown. We need to work through that. We also need to be thinking about what's the shape of the preemptive licensing framework look like. We need to think about all of the operational aspects of this, particularly aspects like security, testing, data privacy, those kind of areas. And also we need to make sure that as we develop the technical aspects of it, that we're not missing any tricks on ensuring that what we build is as good as it can possibly be, given the fantastic start we've already got. So I'm asking for imagination, creativity, commitment, going the extra mile. That will get us the result that we're really looking for here, Gavin.
Great. And Jana, similar question. We're some way into the project now, but we're still at the beginning of the journey overall. What's your one ask for the potential audience here?
My one ask, well, that's quite constraining, Gavin, unlike you. I think Many of the concepts that we've been looking at in terms of enabling climate-ready outcomes are very well understood on the capital market side of things, and are concepts that are increasingly being built into business models. Insurance, on the other hand, has been very much focused on the physical risks associated with climate change. And what's really unique about what we're doing at CERI is that we're looking at insurance as a potential enabler of net zero and climate ready outcomes. But we do recognize as well that insurance is just one part of the puzzle. There are many blockers to, for example, the adoption of technologies that can that are themselves net zero enabling, and what we need is a collaborative ecosystem of participants from many different backgrounds. So whether it's in the financial services space, those who are looking at the financing of these types of companies and initiatives, whether it's those companies themselves who can tell us what their blockers to commercialization and adoption are. And also organizations who are looking at how to promote the adoption of climate-ready technologies and innovations and promotion of climate-ready behaviors. So it's quite a broad cross-section that we're looking for, really. Anyone who's aligned with our messages and willing to collaborate.
Super, thanks very much. Well, look, thanks for watching, everyone. We're really keen to engage, as you can tell, from across the city and regional level with Project Cygnus, looking at how we can stimulate economic activity that drives both the economy and our net zero targets, with open energy, on engaging across the entire sector to unlock value and, again, drive us to net zero. And finally, with CERI, with the financial products such as insurance, how can we use that lever to create the change that we all need to see? Please sign up or join us at the URL that's on your website, on your screen at the moment. Thank you.